everyone, and welcome to Ultra Prime Selections, official YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into some fascinating topics that define life in North America. Before we begin, we want to take a moment to recognize and support those affected by the ongoing fires in Los Angeles and across the region. Our thoughts are with all those impacted, and we encourage everyone to contribute to relief efforts if possible. Every small gesture makes a difference. Now, let's delve into today's topic, an in-depth exploration of the similarities, differences, and intriguing possibilities between Canada and the United States, including the possibility of a merger between Canada and the United States. Let's begin. Both Canada and the United States are strong democracies, but they operate under different systems of governance. Canada functions as a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy, while the United States is a federal constitutional republic with a presidential system. Canada's head of state is King Charles III, represented locally by the Governor-General. In contrast, the U.S. president serves as both the head of state and government. Canada's political scene is dominated by the Liberal and Conservative parties, alongside smaller parties like the NDP and Bloc Québécois. Meanwhile, the U.S. primarily revolves around the Democratic and Republican parties. These differences in governance and political culture define how laws are made, policies are implemented, and the public's voice is heard. Healthcare is a defining difference and a shared challenge between Canada and the United States. Canada's universal healthcare system is funded through taxes, ensuring medical services are accessible to all at the point of care. However, it's not without its issues. Canadians indirectly pay for healthcare through high taxes, with the average family contributing over $15,000 annually for public healthcare services. Despite this, many face long wait times for procedures, limited access to specialists, and shortages in medical staff and resources. Meanwhile, in the United States, a privatized insurance-based model ensures faster access to specialized care and some of the most advanced medical technology in the world. However, this comes at a price. Americans pay significantly more out of pocket and through insurance premiums, with many unable to afford proper care without adequate coverage. Canada's healthcare system, although more affordable, faces challenges like longer wait times for certain procedures. The hypothetical merger of these nations could create a hybrid model, combining the strengths of both systems. A merger between Canada and the U.S. could unlock the best of both systems while addressing their flaws. Canada's universal model could be expanded with enhanced funding and innovation, leveraging the U.S.'s world-class infrastructure, cutting-edge technology, and faster service delivery. At the same time, American citizens could benefit from the cost efficiency and inclusiveness of universal healthcare. By pooling resources, sharing expertise, and harmonizing healthcare systems, both nations could reduce overall costs, improve access, and set a new standard for equitable, high-quality care. This merger could fix Canada's strained system while making healthcare more affordable and accessible for Americans. However, let's break down some more details about Canada and the United States healthcare system. First off, one of the most debated aspects of healthcare is cost, whether it's paid through taxes or directly through insurance premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. Canadians currently pay an average of over $15,000 per household annually for public health care, funded through taxes. Despite universal coverage, many still face lengthy wait times for critical services, and some Canadians even seek treatment in the U.S. to bypass these delays. Now, imagine a scenario where Canada's public healthcare system transitions to a model with optional private insurance similar to what we see in the United States. Canadians could see a significant reduction in their taxes, savings that could be redirected toward private insurance or direct care costs. This change would introduce competition and innovation, potentially reducing inefficiencies in the system. Many Americans currently pay over $12,000 annually per person for health care through a mix of premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses. A more streamlined, cost-efficient system inspired by Canada's model could reduce these expenses significantly, making healthcare more affordable. Let's consider the numbers. Even if Canadians transition to a privatized system, the reduction in tax burdens could still leave households with more disposable income, potentially even after purchasing health insurance. And let's face it, the Canadian healthcare system is failing. Hospitals are overwhelmed, while the U.S. system, often criticized for its cost, provides faster access to specialists, advanced medical technology, and better overall infrastructure. Here's how transitioning to a U.S.-style privatized healthcare model could benefit Canadians. 1. Faster access to care. In the Canadian system, long wait times for surgeries and diagnostic tests are a major issue. The U.S. system excels in this area due to its competitive, privatized structure, where patients can access specialists and services much more quickly. By adopting a similar model, Canadians could avoid months-long delays for life-changing procedures, leading to better health outcomes and quality of life. 2. Superior medical infrastructure. The United States leads the world in medical advancements, from cutting-edge technologies to state-of-the-art hospitals. A merger with the U.S. system could bring these benefits to Canada, improving facilities and introducing innovative treatments currently unavailable or inaccessible within the Canadian system. 3. Retaining Canadian healthcare professionals. Canada faces a critical shortage of healthcare workers, with many doctors and nurses moving to the U.S. for higher salaries, better resources, and less bureaucratic interference. Integrating with the U.S. system would create a more competitive environment in Canada, ensuring medical professionals are incentivized to stay and work at home. This would lead to a better patient-to-doctor ratio and improved care for Canadians. 4. Lower overall costs for families. While Canadians currently fund healthcare through taxes, transitioning to a privatized system could reduce their financial burden. The $15,000 average annual tax contribution for healthcare could be redirected toward private insurance premiums, which in many cases are significantly less costly. The ability to choose the level of coverage that fits their needs means many Canadians could save money while receiving better and faster care. 5. A personalized approach to healthcare. The U.S. system offers greater flexibility and choice. Canadians could benefit from selecting insurance plans tailored to their needs, from basic coverage to premium plans with additional benefits. This personalization fosters competition among providers, leading to higher quality care and innovation. 6. Less government strain and improved efficiency. The Canadian government spends billions annually to maintain its healthcare system, yet inefficiencies and administrative bottlenecks persist. By shifting to a more privatized model like the U.S., those funds could be redirected to other critical areas, such as education or infrastructure, while healthcare providers focus on delivering the best possible care. So, the Canadian healthcare system, while admirable in its inclusivity, is failing to meet the needs of its citizens. Overwhelmed hospitals, overworked staff, and long wait times are symptomatic of a system that cannot keep up with demand. By transitioning to a U.S.-style privatized system, Canadians could gain access to faster, higher quality care while reducing their financial burden. Real benefits for Canadians include faster access to specialists and surgeries, higher quality healthcare facilities and cutting-edge technology, retention of top medical talent within Canada, reduced tax burdens, leaving more money in Canadians' pockets, a more competitive, efficient, and responsive healthcare system. The U.S. system's proven strengths, its speed, innovation, and flexibility, could be exactly what Canada needs to address its healthcare challenges and improve outcomes for all its citizens. Canada and the United States share similarities in their legal foundations, but their systems reflect distinct priorities and approaches. Canada's legal system is largely based on common law, except for Quebec, which operates under a civil law system for private matters. The United States, on the other hand, is entirely based on common law, but places a stronger emphasis on individual rights and freedoms, including its less restrictive gun laws protected under the Second Amendment. A merger of these two nations could provide opportunities for Canada to benefit from the strengths of the U.S. legal system while addressing areas for improvement in both countries. 1. Enhanced individual rights. The U.S. legal system places a high value on protecting individual rights and freedoms, including free speech, due process, and personal liberties. While Canada's legal system offers protections, its framework often allows for broader government intervention in areas like free expression. Adopting elements of the U.S. legal emphasis on individual rights could strengthen protections for Canadians and foster a greater sense of personal autonomy. 2. Simplified legal systems. Canada's dual system of common law and civil law in Quebec can create complexities in governance and legal proceedings. Adopting the U.S. model of a unified common law system could streamline legal processes across Canada, reducing inconsistencies and making the legal framework more accessible and efficient. 3. Clearer constitutional protections. The U.S. Constitution provides explicit protections for key rights, such as freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. Canadians often rely on interpretations of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which leaves room for judicial flexibility but can result in less clarity. Incorporating the U.S. approach to explicit constitutional protections could provide Canadians with more defined and enforceable rights. 4. Access to broader legal resources. The United States has a vast network of legal institutions, courts, and professionals, supported by a well-established precedent system. Canadians could benefit from access to these resources, including specialized courts and a more extensive body of case law that could address modern legal challenges like technology regulation and international commerce more effectively. 5. Balanced gun regulations. While the U.S. Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms, Canada's stricter gun laws prioritize public safety. A merger could create an opportunity to develop a balanced approach, combining Canada's emphasis on regulation with the U.S. focus on protecting constitutional rights. This could lead to laws that allow responsible gun ownership while addressing safety concerns effectively. 6. Reduced judicial backlogs. Canada's court systems often experience significant delays in handling cases, partly due to resource limitations and procedural inefficiencies. By adopting elements of the U.S. legal structure, including expanded court capacities and streamlined procedures, Canada could alleviate these backlogs and ensure swifter justice for its citizens. A legal system built on the best of both nations. A merger of Canada and the United States would present a unique opportunity to build a stronger, more effective legal framework. Canadians could benefit from enhanced individual rights, a simplified and unified legal system, and access to more robust legal resources. Meanwhile, the U.S. could adopt practical lessons from Canada's regulatory focus, particularly in areas like public safety and governance. Real benefits for Canadians include stronger individual rights and constitutional protections, streamlined legal processes across provinces, better access to specialized legal expertise and resources, faster resolution of legal cases with reduced backlogs, a balanced approach to issues like gun ownership and public safety. By merging their legal strengths, Canada and the U.S. could create a fairer, more efficient, and more adaptable system that benefits both nations. The United States is the largest economy in the world, driven by a diverse base of industries, including technology, finance, manufacturing, and consumer goods. Canada, while smaller in scale, is a resource-rich nation, relying heavily on exports of oil, lumber, minerals, and agricultural products. These economies are not only powerful in their own right, but are also deeply interconnected. Map highlighting trade between the two nations. How the U.S. economy could benefit Canadians. A merger between Canada and the United States would create a global economic powerhouse, leveraging the strengths of both countries. For Canadians, aligning with the U.S. economy could lead to unprecedented opportunities for growth, innovation, and prosperity. 1. Access to a larger market. The U.S. economy offers Canadians access to a massive consumer base of over 330 million people, significantly expanding opportunities for businesses and entrepreneurs. Merging economies would eliminate barriers, allowing Canadian companies to grow faster and reach new markets without the constraints of trade regulations or differing economic policies. 2. Lower corporate tax rates. The United States has lower corporate tax rates compared to Canada, which would create a more competitive environment for Canadian businesses. This could attract greater investment, stimulate job creation, and reduce the financial burden on companies, enabling them to reinvest in innovation and expansion. 3. Enhanced innovation and technology. The U.S. leads the world in technological advancements and innovation, from Silicon Valley's tech giants to cutting-edge research in pharmaceuticals and renewable energy. By joining forces, Canadians would gain access to these technological hubs, fostering collaboration and accelerating innovation in industries that have historically been underfunded in Canada. 4. Diversification of Canada's economy. Canada's economy relies heavily on resource exports, which leaves it vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices. By integrating with the U.S. economy, Canada could diversify its economic base, benefiting from the United States' strengths in manufacturing, services, and high-tech industries. This would reduce Canada's dependency on natural resources and create a more resilient economy. 5. Increased job opportunities. A unified economy would lead to an expanded labor market, providing Canadians with more job opportunities in high-paying industries such as technology, finance, and healthcare. Cross-border mobility would allow Canadian workers to compete for roles in U.S.-based companies and vice versa, increasing career prospects and wages. 6. Stronger global influence. The combined economic strength of Canada and the U.S. would position the new entity as an unparalleled global powerhouse. This would give Canadians more influence in shaping global trade policies, negotiating with other nations, and driving economic trends worldwide. Canada's resources and the U.S.'s market power would create an unmatched competitive edge. 7. Streamlined trade and regulations. Trade agreements like the USMCA, formerly NAFTA, have already established a framework for cooperation, but merging the two economies would eliminate remaining trade barriers. This would lead to more efficient supply chains, reduce costs for businesses, and lower prices for consumers on both sides of the border. A new era of prosperity. Merging with the U.S. economy would offer Canadians unparalleled opportunities for growth and prosperity. The benefits are clear. Lower corporate tax rates that stimulate business investment and innovation. Access to cutting-edge technology and expanded markets. Job creation across a more diverse range of industries. Economic stability through diversification beyond resource exports. Stronger influence on the global stage as part of the world's largest economy. For Canadians, joining forces with the U.S. economy would mean not just surviving, but thriving in an increasingly competitive global landscape. By integrating their strengths, the two nations could create an economic powerhouse capable of driving innovation, growth, and opportunity for generations to come. Canadians and Americans share a deep cultural bond, from a common language to similar entertainment preferences. Yet, each nation brings its own unique flavor to the mix. Canada leans toward collectivism, multiculturalism, and a more reserved sense of national pride. The United States, on the other hand, places a strong emphasis on individualism, patriotism, and bold expressions of national identity. How American cultural strengths could benefit Canadians. A merger between Canada and the U.S. would not dilute the cultural richness of either nation, but rather provide Canadians with new opportunities to thrive in an expanded cultural landscape. Here's how embracing American cultural dynamics could benefit Canadians. 1. Amplified global influence. The United States dominates global culture, from Hollywood blockbusters to global music icons and trends. By merging, Canadian artists, filmmakers, and creators could tap into the vast resources, platforms, and audiences that the U.S. cultural industry provides, bringing greater recognition to Canadian talent on the world stage. 2. Strengthen multicultural framework. While Canada is celebrated for its multiculturalism, merging with the U.S. could enhance these values by blending Canada's inclusivity with the U.S.'s influence and reach. Together, the nations could create a broader, more diverse cultural identity that reflects the best of both traditions and sets an example for global multiculturalism. 3. Expanded opportunities for Canadian creators. Canadian artists, writers, and entertainers often face limited opportunities due to Canada's smaller market. Joining forces with the U.S. would provide these creators access to a larger audience and more funding opportunities. This could lead to a surge in Canadian cultural exports, from music and movies to literature and art, with more chances to shine globally. 4. A fusion of traditions. A merger would not erase national traditions, but instead create opportunities for fusion and celebration. Imagine combining Canada Day's community focus with the 4th of July's grandeur and fireworks, resulting in joint celebrations that honor both nations' histories. This would enrich cultural traditions and foster deeper connections between citizens. 5. Broader support for sports and entertainment. Sports and entertainment industries in the U.S. are massive, with leagues and events that attract global audiences. Canadian teams, athletes, and entertainers could benefit from these expanded resources and infrastructure, helping them achieve greater success and visibility. The NHL, NBA, and even the Olympics could see a stronger joint presence, blending talent and passion from both sides of the border. 6. A balance between collectivism and individualism. Canada's collectivist approach, with its focus on shared values and collaboration, could blend harmoniously with the U.S. emphasis on individual achievement and ambition. This merger of mindsets would encourage Canadians to embrace new opportunities for self-expression while still maintaining their sense of community and shared purpose. 7. Shared media platforms and storytelling. American media is a global powerhouse, and merging cultural narratives could bring Canadian stories to a much larger audience. This would provide Canadians with a chance to showcase their unique heritage, history, and values while collaborating with U.S. counterparts to create richer, more diverse storytelling. A new cultural era. Rather than eroding cultural identities, a merger between Canada and the U.S. would allow both nations to build on their strengths, fostering an enriched cultural landscape. Canadians would gain greater global recognition, expanded opportunities for creators, and access to vast resources in entertainment, media, and the arts. Meanwhile, American culture would be invigorated by Canada's values of inclusivity, collectivism, and rich traditions. Real benefits for Canadians include greater visibility for Canadian artists, creators, and athletes, broader access to resources and audiences through U.S. platforms, enriched celebrations and traditions that honor both nations, a stronger global voice for multiculturalism and diversity, opportunities to balance collectivist and individualist values. Together, Canada and the U.S. could forge a cultural identity that respects their unique heritages while creating something new and vibrant, a cultural powerhouse that inspires the world. How U.S. educational strengths could benefit Canadians and their children. A merger between Canada and the United States could open doors for students and families on both sides of the border, creating unprecedented opportunities for growth, learning, and future success. Here's how this integration could benefit Canadian children and the broader education system. 1. Expanded academic opportunities. The United States is home to some of the world's top-ranked universities, cutting-edge research institutions, and specialized programs in everything from technology to the arts. By merging, Canadian students could gain access to these world-class institutions without facing the high international tuition fees currently imposed. This would provide children with greater opportunities to pursue their dreams and compete globally. 2. Increased funding and resources. The U.S. invests heavily in educational infrastructure, technology, and innovation, creating environments that foster excellence. Canadian schools and universities could benefit from these resources, leading to better-equipped classrooms, advanced research opportunities, and enhanced extracurricular programs for students. 3. Improved career prospects for graduates. A unified education system would give Canadian students access to the expansive U.S. job market. Graduates from Canadian institutions could seamlessly compete for high-paying roles in industries like technology, finance, and healthcare, which are often dominated by U.S.-based companies. This expanded labor market would provide more opportunities for young Canadians to succeed professionally. 4. Access to affordable education options. For American students, Canada's lower tuition rates would provide an attractive, cost-effective alternative to their domestic options. For Canadians, access to the diverse U.S. system would mean more choices in specialized programs and private institutions, while maintaining affordability through cross-border agreements or scholarships. 5. Enhanced K-12 education. Canadian K-12 education is often praised for its equity and quality, while the U.S. system excels in offering advanced placement programs, extracurricular activities, and specialized charter schools. A merger could combine these strengths, giving all children access to high-quality foundational education, personalized learning pathways, and enriched extracurricular opportunities. 6. Broader cultural exposure for students. Cross-border education would allow children to learn and grow in diverse cultural environments, fostering open-mindedness and adaptability. Students could participate in exchange programs, internships, and collaborative projects that expose them to different perspectives and prepare them for a globalized world. 7. Strengthened research collaboration. Canadian universities are known for their research in areas like environmental studies and public health, while U.S. institutions lead in fields such as technology and medicine. A merged system could facilitate stronger collaboration between researchers, leading to groundbreaking discoveries that benefit students, society, and the global community. A future focused on children and their success. Education shapes the future, and a merger between Canada and the United States would provide children with the best of both systems. For Canadian families, this means access to top-tier universities, improved funding for schools, and enhanced career opportunities for graduates. For American families, it opens doors to affordable education options and greater collaboration with Canadian institutions. Real benefits for families include broader access to world-class education for our children, enhanced learning environments with better resources and technology, affordable tuition options for families on both sides of the border, stronger career prospects for graduates in a unified labor market, a richer, culturally diverse education experience. By merging their educational strengths, Canada and the U.S. could create a system that equips children to thrive in a competitive world, ensuring every student has the tools to succeed and build a brighter future. This partnership would not just enhance education, but transform it for generations to come. Canada and the United States offer a striking contrast in climates and geographies. Canada's vast northern landscapes are characterized by colder weather, while the United States boasts incredible diversity, from Alaska's Arctic conditions to Florida's tropical warmth. Together, these differences create a unique opportunity for collaboration and shared prosperity. The benefits of a merger: climate and geography. 1. Diverse living environments for all. Canadians would gain greater access to the U.S.'s varied climates, offering options for warmer living conditions during harsh winters or year-round opportunities for outdoor activities. At the same time, Americans could explore and experience Canada's pristine wilderness, vibrant seasons, and wide-open spaces. This range of environments would allow citizens of both nations to find places that suit their lifestyles, careers, or retirement plans. 2. Enhanced economic opportunities. The U.S.'s diverse geography supports industries like agriculture, tourism, and renewable energy, while Canada excels in resource-driven sectors like forestry, mining, and clean energy. A merger would unlock new possibilities for cross-border collaboration, driving economic growth and creating jobs in industries that depend on climate and geography, such as energy production, transportation, and ecotourism. 3. Joint management of shared resources. Canada and the U.S. share vital environmental resources, including the Great Lakes, Arctic ecosystems, and vast forests. By working together as a unified entity, these nations could implement more effective and sustainable management strategies, ensuring the long-term preservation of these critical resources for future generations. 4. Strengthen climate resilience. Both nations face unique climate challenges. Canada deals with extreme cold and permafrost issues, while the U.S. contends with hurricanes, droughts, and wildfires. A merger would allow for the pooling of expertise, technologies, and resources to create advanced infrastructure and strategies for addressing these challenges. Together, they could lead global efforts in climate adaptation and disaster preparedness. 5. Streamline transportation and connectivity. A unified nation would enable seamless transportation networks, connecting Canada's cities and towns with the U.S.'s extensive highways, railroads, and air travel hubs. This improved connectivity would make it easier for citizens to travel between regions, access new opportunities, and strengthen economic ties. 6. Tourism and cultural exchange. A merger would open up incredible opportunities for tourism, as Canadians could more easily explore U.S. attractions like national parks, sunny beaches, and cultural landmarks, while Americans could more readily experience Canada's breathtaking landscapes and vibrant heritage. This exchange would not only boost local economies, but also foster deeper connections between citizens of both nations. 7. Leadership in climate solutions. Canada's expertise in renewable energy and conservation, combined with the U.S.'s resources and technological innovations, would create a powerful force for combating climate change. Together, they could set new global standards for reducing carbon emissions, preserving biodiversity, and promoting sustainable development. A merger between Canada and the U.S. would unlock the full potential of their diverse landscapes and climates, offering citizens more opportunities to thrive while working together to protect the environment. Whether it's creating jobs, improving transportation, or addressing climate challenges, this partnership would allow both nations to embrace their strengths and build a more sustainable and prosperous future. Let's talk about national security. Canada's military, while respected for its professionalism and peacekeeping legacy, is significantly smaller and less equipped compared to that of the United States. With limited funding, resources, and personnel, Canada faces vulnerabilities in defending its vast geography, particularly in the Arctic and along its extensive coastlines. Currently, Canada already relies heavily on the United States for its defense through alliances like NORAD and NATO. So let's talk Canada's reliance on U.S. defense. 1. Strategic vulnerabilities. Canada's geographic size makes it challenging to defend adequately with its current military capabilities. The Arctic, a region of growing global interest due to its untapped resources, is particularly vulnerable. Without the advanced technology and resources needed to secure the area, Canada depends on U.S. support to monitor and defend this critical region. 2. Defense partnerships already in place. Through NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, Canada relies on U.S. air and missile defense systems to safeguard its skies. The United States also provides significant naval and cybersecurity support. While this partnership has been effective, merging Canada's armed forces with the United States would eliminate redundancies and strengthen North America's defense as a unified entity. Benefits of combining forces. 1. Enhanced defense capabilities for Canada. If Canada's armed forces were integrated into the United States Armed Forces, Canadian soldiers would gain access to cutting-edge equipment, advanced training, and a significantly larger defense budget. This would enhance their ability to respond to threats and secure Canada's borders and vital regions like the Arctic. 2. Greater security for citizens. A combined military force would mean better protection for Canadian citizens. With access to the U.S.'s extensive military infrastructure, such as its fighter jets, naval fleets, and missile defense systems, Canada's vulnerabilities would be addressed more effectively. This would ensure faster and stronger responses to any potential threats, both domestic and international. 3. Arctic sovereignty and global influence. As global powers like Russia and China increase their presence in the Arctic, Canada alone cannot adequately defend its sovereignty. Merging with the U.S. would provide the resources and expertise needed to protect the Arctic's valuable resources and strategic positioning, ensuring North America's dominance in this critical region. Improve security through shared resources. 4. Unified border and cybersecurity. Canada's vast and often remote borders pose challenges for national security. A combined force would streamline border security, with advanced surveillance technologies and intelligence sharing ensuring greater safety. In addition, Canada would benefit from the U.S.'s robust cybersecurity capabilities to protect against increasing digital threats. 5. Superior disaster response and humanitarian aid. A unified military would also improve Canada's ability to respond to natural disasters, such as floods, wildfires, and severe weather events. Canadian personnel, equipped with U.S. resources, could deploy faster and more effectively, aiding communities in need and supporting global humanitarian missions. 6. Economic and strategic efficiency. Joining forces would reduce inefficiencies in defense spending. Shared technology development and manufacturing would boost defense-related industries in both nations, creating jobs and fostering innovation. Canada's expertise in peacekeeping and the U.S.'s global military reach would complement each other, strengthening international operations. Canada's reliance on the United States for defense is undeniable. By formally merging their armed forces, Canada could ensure the safety of its citizens and its sovereignty without overburdening its limited resources. A unified military would not only eliminate Canada's vulnerabilities, but also create a force that stands unrivaled globally. Real benefits for Canadians include access to advanced military technology and infrastructure, stronger defense of vulnerable regions like the Arctic and coastlines, enhanced border security and cybersecurity capabilities, faster disaster response and better humanitarian aid, increased influence in global defense and peacekeeping missions. A merger between Canada and the United States would redefine North American security, ensuring that both nations remain safe, resilient, and dominant in an increasingly complex world. What would a Canada-USA merger look like for Canadians? This ambitious idea offers the potential for unprecedented economic opportunities, enhanced security, and improved infrastructure, but it naturally raises questions about sovereignty, identity, and how to balance the strengths of both nations. For Canadians, this isn't about losing what makes them unique. It's about gaining the resources and opportunities to thrive while preserving their distinct character. The benefits: 1. Economic growth and job creation. Canada would benefit immensely from a streamlined economic system. Merging with the U.S. would eliminate trade barriers, expand markets, and attract investments. Canadian businesses would gain access to over 330 million American consumers, creating new opportunities for growth. At the same time, American companies would invest more in Canadian communities, driving job creation and boosting local economies. 2. Improved infrastructure for everyday life. Imagine high-speed rail connecting Toronto to New York or Vancouver to Seattle. A merger would enable joint infrastructure projects that benefit Canadians directly: upgraded roads, expanded public transit, and modernized energy systems. These improvements would make travel, commerce, and daily life easier for everyone. 3. Enhanced national security. Canada's vast geography and smaller military budget leave it reliant on the U.S. for defense, particularly in the Arctic. By formally combining forces, Canada would gain access to advanced technology, more robust resources, and greater protection for its citizens. Canadians wouldn't need to sacrifice their values or independence to feel safer and better defended. 4. Access to world-class services. From healthcare to education, Canadians could benefit from the U.S.'s world-leading innovation and funding. While healthcare systems would need thoughtful integration, Canadians could gain faster access to advanced treatments and specialized care without losing the accessibility of universal coverage. Similarly, students would have access to top-tier universities across North America at affordable rates, opening up new opportunities for young Canadians. Now let's talk about sovereignty and identity. Many people are thinking they will lose their sovereignty and identity, however, that is wrong. 1. Canada's political system and culture would remain intact. Canadians value their parliamentary system, multiculturalism, and traditions. In a merger, these pillars of Canadian identity could remain intact, much like how states in the U.S. maintain their own governance structures. Canada could function as a distinct region with its own laws and policies where appropriate, ensuring its unique character is preserved. 2. Representation and governance. To address concerns about representation, Canadians would have proportional input in a unified government. Systems could be designed to reflect both nations' populations and values, ensuring that Canadian voices remain strong and influential. 3. Protection of Canadian culture. Canada's emphasis on multiculturalism and arts would not be overshadowed, but amplified. A merger would provide Canadian creators with access to larger audiences while preserving funding and support for distinctly Canadian content. This partnership would allow Canada's culture to flourish on a global stage. For Canadians, this isn't about losing sovereignty or identity. It's about building on strengths. A merger would offer Canadians access to unparalleled resources and opportunities while preserving their distinct voice and culture. Together, Canada and the U.S. could achieve more than either nation could alone, all while ensuring that the values Canadians hold dear remain at the heart of the partnership. Key benefits for Canadians include economic opportunities, access to expanded markets, increased investments and job creation, improved infrastructure, high-speed connections, modernized systems, and better transportation, enhanced security, access to advanced defense technology, and greater protection for citizens. Stronger global influence, Canada's voice amplified in a unified North America. Preservation of identity, multiculturalism, traditions, and political structures intact. A Canada-USA merger doesn't mean giving up what makes us Canadian. It means embracing opportunities while preserving and celebrating who we are. Together, we could create a future that strengthens both nations and benefits every citizen. Now let's also talk about the economic implications for Canadians in a Canada-USA merger. Here's a breakdown. 1. Income taxes. Under the U.S. tax system, especially the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act implemented under President Donald Trump, Canadians would benefit from lower marginal tax rates. U.S. marginal tax rates, 10% to 37%, compared to Canada's combined federal and provincial rates, which range from 15% to 53%. Potential savings. A Canadian earning 100,000 Canadian dollars in Ontario, paying 35 to 40% in taxes, might see their tax rate drop to 25 to 30% under U.S. federal tax policies. This could result in savings of $5,000 to $10,000 annually, particularly for high-income earners in provinces with high taxes. Canadians moving to states with no state income tax, e.g., Texas, Florida, would further maximize savings, avoiding additional provincial tax burdens. 2. Payroll taxes. While Canadians might save on income taxes, payroll taxes in the U.S. are structured differently. Canada. Contributions to the Canada Pension Plan, CPP, and Employment Insurance, EI, are capped annually at approximately $4,800. U.S. Payroll taxes include 7.65% for Social Security and Medicare, with Social Security contributions capped at $160,200, but no cap for Medicare. Canadians earning higher incomes may see a slight increase in payroll tax contributions due to the lack of a Medicare cap. 3. Healthcare costs. Healthcare represents a trade-off in savings for Canadians under a U.S. system. Canada. Healthcare is tax-funded, with individuals paying an estimated $5,000 to $8,000 annually through taxes. U.S. Healthcare is privatized, requiring individuals to purchase insurance. Average costs, $6,000 for individuals annually. Impact on Canadians. Low-income Canadians might see significant increases in healthcare costs due to out-of-pocket expenses and higher deductibles. Middle and high-income Canadians may experience mixed results, as tax savings could offset increased healthcare premiums. 4. Sales tax. The U.S. offers significant savings in sales taxes for Canadians. Canada. Combined federal and provincial sales taxes range from 5% to 15%. U.S. Sales tax varies by state, from 0% in Oregon, New Hampshire, to 10%. Canadians living in states with no sales tax could save significantly on goods and services, improving purchasing power. 5. Corporate taxes. Businesses in Canada could benefit from lower corporate tax rates under U.S. policies. Canada. Combined corporate tax rates range from 23% to 31%. U.S. Trump's tax plan cut the corporate tax rate to 21%. Canadian businesses operating under the U.S. system would save significantly, boosting investment, growth, and job creation. 6. Other savings and costs. Capital gains tax. Canadians would benefit from lower long-term capital gains tax rates in the U.S., 0%, 15%, or 20%, compared to Canada's system, where 50% of gains are taxed at marginal rates. Estate tax. The U.S. federal estate tax applies only to estates above $12.92 million, 2023, benefiting wealthy Canadians compared to Canada's deemed disposition system, which taxes gains on assets at death. A Canada-USA merger under a U.S.-style tax and healthcare system would offer significant financial benefits for Canadians, particularly those living in provinces with high tax rates. Middle and low-income Canadians would see mixed results. This economic shift could create greater flexibility for Canadians. Housing is one of the most significant concerns for Canadians today, with high prices and limited availability, making it increasingly difficult for families to afford their dream homes. A merger with the United States could offer Canadians access to more affordable housing options, expanded markets, and diversified real estate opportunities. 1. Lower housing costs in many U.S. states. Canada's housing market, particularly in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver, has seen skyrocketing prices over the past decade. The average home price in Canada exceeds $700,000 Canadian dollars, while in the U.S., housing markets in many states offer far more affordable options. Average home prices. Canada, over $700,000 Canadian dollars, 2023. U.S., around $175,000 US dollars. Benefit for Canadians. Canadians relocating to U.S. states with lower housing costs, such as Texas, Florida, or the Midwest, could significantly reduce their mortgage or rental expenses while accessing more spacious homes. 2. Expanded access to diverse housing markets. While Canada's housing supply is concentrated in a few major cities, the U.S. offers a wide variety of markets, from urban hubs to affordable rural and suburban communities. Canadians could enjoy greater options, from affordable single-family homes in smaller U.S. towns to luxury properties in vibrant cities like Miami or Austin, often at lower prices than comparable Canadian markets. 3. Lower property taxes. Many U.S. states have significantly lower property taxes compared to Canadian provinces, especially in areas like Texas or Florida. Additionally, some states, such as Florida, have no state income tax, which makes homeownership even more affordable for Canadians. Canada. Property taxes can range from 0.5% to over 2% of a home's value annually, depending on the province. U.S. Property tax rates vary widely, but are often lower, with some states offering tax breaks for first-time home buyers or seniors. 4. Easier access to second homes and vacation properties. The U.S. offers an array of affordable vacation property options, from beachside condos in Florida to mountain cabins in Colorado. A merger would make it easier for Canadians to purchase second homes or investment properties in these desirable locations without the complications of foreign ownership laws or exchange rates. 5. Reduce pressure on Canadian housing markets. A merger would allow Canadians to relocate more freely to the U.S., reducing demand in overcrowded Canadian cities. This could help stabilize housing prices in Canada while providing families with opportunities to live in areas with more affordable housing and better amenities. 6. Economic boost for both nations. Cross-border access to housing markets could stimulate economic growth, with increased investment in construction, real estate, and infrastructure. Canadian developers could expand operations in the U.S., benefiting from lower construction costs and more available land, while U.S. investors could support housing projects in underdeveloped Canadian regions. 7. Infrastructure and community benefits. A merger would facilitate shared investments in housing infrastructure, such as smart cities, sustainable developments, and affordable housing initiatives. Both nations could work together to address housing shortages while ensuring high-quality, livable communities. The real benefits for Canadians. Lower housing costs. Canadians could save significantly by relocating to more affordable U.S. markets. Increased options. Access to diverse housing opportunities, from urban centers to rural retreats. Lower property taxes. Many U.S. states offer tax benefits that make homeownership more affordable. Easier vacation homeownership. Canadians could purchase second homes in desirable U.S. locations without barriers. Stabilize Canadian housing markets. Reduced demand in major cities could help control soaring home prices in Canada. A merger between Canada and the United States could provide Canadians with better housing opportunities, more affordable living, and access to a wider range of real estate options. This partnership could help ensure that families in both nations have the chance to thrive in communities that fit their needs and budgets. The Canadian dollar has struggled to maintain its value against the US dollar in recent years. While Canada's economy is resource-rich, it remains vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices, which often leads to instability in the currency. In contrast, the US dollar is a global reserve currency, backed by the world's largest economy and a diversified financial system. Why the Canadian dollar is struggling. Dependency on commodities. The Canadian economy is heavily reliant on exports like oil, lumber, and minerals. When global commodity prices drop, so does the value of the Canadian dollar. This volatility makes it harder for Canadians to plan for long-term financial stability. Limited global influence. The Canadian dollar is not a global reserve currency, meaning it lacks the same level of demand and stability as the US dollar. This limits its strength on international markets, especially during economic downturns. Lower investor confidence. Global investors often prefer the US dollar due to its stability and the strength of the US economy. This leaves the Canadian dollar at a disadvantage, especially in times of global economic uncertainty. How merging with the US dollar benefits Canadians. 1. Economic stability and global power. By adopting the US dollar, Canadians would benefit from the stability of the world's most powerful currency. This would eliminate the risks associated with fluctuating exchange rates and make it easier for Canadian businesses and consumers to plan their finances. 2. Increased purchasing power. The weaker Canadian dollar often means Canadians pay more for imported goods, from electronics to groceries. Using the US dollar would increase Canadians' purchasing power, reducing the cost of goods and services imported from the US or other countries. 3. Boosted investment opportunities. Access to a stronger, globally recognized currency would attract more international investment into Canadian industries. This would create jobs, boost innovation, and strengthen the overall economy. 4. Simplified trade. With the US as Canada's largest trading partner, adopting the same currency would streamline cross-border trade, eliminating the need for currency exchanges and reducing costs for businesses. This would make Canadian goods and services more competitive globally. 5. Better savings for citizens. Canadians would no longer need to worry about unfavorable exchange rates when traveling or making purchases in the US. Additionally, savings accounts, retirement funds, and other investments would benefit from the stability and higher interest rates often associated with the US dollar. Challenges addressed by a merger. 1. Protection from commodity price fluctuations. By aligning with the US economy, Canada's dependence on commodities like oil and lumber would become less critical. The diversified strength of the US dollar would shield Canadians from the economic shocks caused by volatile resource prices. 2. Increased economic collaboration. Sharing a currency would encourage deeper collaboration between Canadian and US businesses, leading to joint ventures and innovations that boost economic growth on both sides of the border. 3. More financial security for families. The stability of the US dollar would provide Canadian families with more predictable financial futures, reducing the impacts of inflation and exchange rate fluctuations on everyday expenses. The real benefits for Canadians. Stronger purchasing power for goods and services, both domestically and internationally. Reduced financial volatility, providing stability for businesses and families. Elimination of exchange rate costs, making cross-border transactions seamless. Increased investor confidence, driving economic growth and innovation in Canada. Protection from commodity-driven economic shocks, ensuring a more stable economy. A merger between Canada and the United States would give Canadians access to the world's most powerful currency, providing economic stability, increased purchasing power, and a brighter financial future. By aligning with the rising American dollar, Canadians could unlock new opportunities and build a stronger, more secure economy for generations to come. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. But before we continue, on January 11th, 2025, Greenland officially requested to begin negotiations with President Donald Trump to explore his proposed merger idea, contrary to what the mainstream media might report. Over the years, mainstream media has proven to be an unreliable source of information, prioritizing ratings, views, money, and corruption to push their own narratives. They were even caught publishing false reports, especially during the pandemic, further eroding public trust. With that said, let's get to the moment you've all been waiting for. Your questions getting answered. We've heard your concerns and worked diligently to bring you the answers. Through our contacts, conversations with global leaders, businesses, and experts, we've gathered the information you've been seeking. Now, it's time to share the truth and address what matters most to you. We will answer each question one by one. A Canada-USA merger offers incredible opportunities for both nations, tackling key economic, social, and political challenges. In this video, we'll address Canadians' questions and concerns, one question at a time.
First question asked by Emily Carter from Vancouver, British Columbia. What would Canada's representation in U.S. Congress and the Senate look like?
Great question, Emily. If Canada is to join the United States, representation in Congress and the Senate would be structured to ensure Canadians have a strong voice in decision-making. Each province would likely be treated similarly to U.S. states, receiving representation in both the House of Representatives, based on population, and the Senate with equal representation for every province. This system would allow Canadians to influence policies at a federal level far beyond what they can currently achieve. Imagine provinces like Ontario and British Columbia, with their large populations, having multiple representatives in Congress, championing Canadian priorities. At the same time, every province, regardless of size, would have equal representation in the Senate, ensuring smaller provinces like Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland have a seat at the table. This setup could amplify Canada's voice on issues like trade, environmental policies, and healthcare, with Canadian representatives advocating for policies beneficial to their constituents. It would also provide Canadians with direct access to the resources and legislative power of one of the world's most influential governments.
Asked by Liam Peterson from Calgary, Alberta. How would the merger affect Canada's independence and sovereignty?
Great question, Liam. A merger would certainly mean changes to Canada's current system, but it doesn't necessarily mean the loss of Canadian identity or values. In fact, the merger could offer Canadians a more influential role on the global stage while preserving many of the things that make Canada unique. Under a merger, provinces would operate similarly to U.S. states, retaining control over key aspects like education, healthcare, and local governance. Think of it as an expanded version of the current provincial system, but with added access to the vast resources and opportunities of a unified government. Moreover, Canadians would gain representation in the U.S. federal system, ensuring their voices shape decisions at the highest levels. Rather than being overshadowed on the global stage, Canadians could influence policies in areas like trade, defense, and climate change with greater weight than ever before. Ultimately, this partnership could enhance Canadians' ability to protect their values and priorities while providing new opportunities for growth and collaboration. The goal wouldn't be to erase Canada's identity, but to strengthen it within a larger, more powerful framework.
Question 3. Asked by Sophie Laurent from Montreal, Quebec. Would Canada lose its distinct national identity and cultural heritage?
Fantastic question, Sophie. The short answer is no. Canada would not lose its distinct identity or cultural heritage in a merger. In fact, a union could provide an opportunity to showcase and strengthen Canadian culture on a broader platform. Canada's identity is deeply rooted in its diversity, bilingualism, and unique cultural traditions. These are values that Canadians take pride in, and that would continue to thrive. In a merger, provinces could retain control over cultural and educational policies, ensuring that elements like French language preservation in Quebec or Indigenous heritage across the country remain protected and celebrated. Additionally, Canadian traditions, art, and perspectives would gain even more visibility and influence in a larger union, allowing Canadian culture to enrich and shape the broader society. Think of it not as losing identity, but as sharing it more broadly, offering Canadian values and heritage a stage to influence millions more people. In the end, a merger could enhance collaboration while respecting and preserving what makes Canada so special.
Asked by Pierre Moreau from Quebec City, Quebec. What happens to bilingualism and French language rights?
Fantastic question, Pierre. In a merger, bilingualism and French language rights would remain a priority, especially given the cultural and historical significance of French in Canada, and particularly in Quebec. Just as U.S. states have the power to establish their own laws and policies regarding language and culture, a merged system could allow provinces like Quebec to continue promoting and protecting the French language as an integral part of their identity. Federal support for bilingualism could be negotiated as a key condition of the merger, ensuring that French is not only preserved but also promoted across the larger union. Moreover, the unique character of Quebec and other francophone communities would be recognized as a critical part of the union's diversity. This would provide an opportunity to elevate the French language and culture to a broader audience, potentially increasing resources for French education and cultural initiatives across North America. In short, bilingualism and French language rights wouldn't disappear. They could thrive under new agreements that respect and celebrate Canada's linguistic diversity.
Asked by David Thompson from Edmonton, Alberta. How would Canadian provinces and territories be incorporated into the U.S. federal structure?
Another great question. Thank you, David. In a merger, Canadian provinces and territories would likely be incorporated into the U.S. federal system as new states. Each province and territory would retain its unique identity and local governance while gaining representation in the U.S. Congress, just like current U.S. states. Provinces with larger populations, such as Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta, would have significant representation in the House of Representatives, ensuring that their voices are well heard on federal issues. Smaller provinces and territories, like Prince Edward Island or Nunavut, would still benefit from equal representation in the Senate, ensuring their interests are protected regardless of population size. Additionally, provincial governments could continue to oversee local matters such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, much like state governments do in the U.S. This structure would allow for continuity in governance while granting provinces access to greater resources and influence within a larger political framework. Incorporating Canadian provinces and territories into the U.S. federal system could provide new opportunities for collaboration, investment, and development while preserving local autonomy and decision-making power.
Asked by Rachel Nguyen from Toronto, Ontario. How would the merger impact taxation for Canadians?
Great question, Rachel. A merger would bring changes to the tax system, but it could also present significant benefits for Canadians. Under a merger, Canadians would transition from their current tax system to the U.S. federal tax system, which includes federal income tax, state taxes, and potentially lower corporate tax rates. For many Canadians, this could result in lower overall tax burdens, as the U.S. generally has lower income and sales taxes compared to Canada. Businesses, in particular, could benefit from the U.S.'s competitive corporate tax rates, potentially leading to more investment, job creation, and economic growth in Canada. Additionally, Canadians would gain access to the extensive services and benefits provided by the U.S. federal government, such as infrastructure funding, defense, and expanded trade opportunities. While there would be adjustments, including the integration of state and federal taxes, Canadians would also see savings in areas like cross-border trade and business regulations. The key would be to ensure that any tax transition is gradual and thoughtfully managed, so Canadians can maximize the benefits while minimizing disruptions. In the long run, the merger could lead to a more efficient and prosperous economic environment for everyone involved.
Asked by Laura Deschamps from Halifax, Nova Scotia. How would the Canadian dollar be phased out, and at what exchange rate?
Awesome question, Laura. If a merger were to occur, there's a strong possibility that the Canadian dollar would be converted to the U.S. dollar at a 1:1 exchange rate to simplify the transition and ensure fairness for Canadians. This approach would mean that every Canadian dollar would hold the same value as a U.S. dollar during the currency conversion process. Such a decision could be negotiated as part of the merger agreement to reassure Canadians about their savings, investments, and purchasing power. The process of phasing out the Canadian dollar would likely involve a transitional period where both currencies are accepted to give businesses, financial institutions, and individuals time to adapt. Once complete, Canadians would benefit from using the U.S. dollar, a globally dominant and stable currency, eliminating exchange rate uncertainties and fees for cross-border transactions. This one-to-one exchange rate approach would provide Canadians with confidence and security during the transition, making the economic integration as smooth and beneficial as possible.
Asked by Ahmed Khan from Winnipeg, Manitoba. How would immigration policies and refugee programs be affected?
Very great question, Ahmed. A merger would bring significant changes to immigration policies and refugee programs, but it could also create opportunities for a more streamlined and robust system that benefits both nations. Canadian provinces would likely adopt the U.S. federal immigration system, which could mean changes to how immigrants and refugees are processed. However, Canada's unique values and traditions of welcoming immigrants and refugees could be preserved through collaborative agreements. Provinces might retain some control over regional immigration programs to address local labor market needs and cultural integration priorities. A unified immigration policy could lead to faster processing times and improved resources, as a combined system would benefit from shared expertise and infrastructure. Refugee programs could be expanded, with both nations pooling their resources to support humanitarian efforts and provide better resettlement opportunities. For immigrants and refugees, this merger could mean greater access to jobs, education, and mobility across a larger unified region. While the specifics would depend on negotiations, the goal would be to create a system that honors Canada's inclusive values while leveraging the strengths of a larger, unified framework.
Asked by Sarah Wilson from Ottawa, Ontario. Would Canadians have to abide by U.S. federal laws, including gun laws?
Great question, Sarah. Canadians would indeed have to adhere to U.S. federal laws, including gun laws. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that Canadian laws and values would be completely overridden. In the U.S., individual states have significant authority to set their own laws, including gun regulations, as long as they don't conflict with federal laws. This flexibility could allow Canadian provinces to maintain stricter gun control measures, much like certain U.S. states already do. For example, states like California and New York have stricter gun laws compared to others, and Canadian provinces could follow a similar path within the framework of U.S. federal law. Negotiations during the merger process could address these concerns directly, ensuring that provinces retain the ability to uphold regulations reflecting Canadian values. The key would be finding a balance that respects the unique perspectives and safety priorities of Canadians while aligning with U.S. federal standards. Ultimately, this would provide Canadians with a voice in shaping the laws that govern them, ensuring their safety and values are represented within the broader union.
Asked by Jason Miller from Regina, Saskatchewan. What role would Canada play in the U.S. military?
Great question, Jason. Canada's role in the U.S. military could be both significant and mutually beneficial, while still reflecting Canada's unique values and strengths. Canadian provinces would likely integrate into the U.S. defense system, with Canadians having the opportunity to serve in the U.S. Armed Forces. This would give Canadians access to one of the most advanced military organizations in the world, with expanded opportunities for training, career advancement, and participation in global peacekeeping and defense initiatives. Canada's existing military infrastructure, such as bases, personnel, and Arctic defense expertise, would be invaluable to the U.S. military. Canada could play a leading role in Arctic security, leveraging its strategic location and knowledge to safeguard this increasingly important region. At the same time, negotiations during the merger process could ensure that Canada maintains its commitment to peacekeeping and humanitarian missions, blending Canadian values with U.S. capabilities. This collaboration could create a more dynamic and well-rounded military force. By joining forces, both nations would strengthen their defense capabilities and global influence, while Canadians would gain access to expanded resources and a greater say in international military operations.
Asked by Natalie Fraser from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Would Canadians have to adopt new passports or driver's licenses?
Another great question. Natalie, yes, Canadians would eventually adopt U.S. passports and driver's licenses, but the transition would likely be gradual and carefully planned to minimize disruption. For passports, Canadians would switch to U.S. passports, granting them the benefits of traveling with one of the most globally recognized and powerful passports. This would provide visa-free or expedited travel to many countries, along with enhanced access to U.S. consular services worldwide. For driver's licenses, Each Canadian province would transition to a system similar to U.S. states, issuing licenses that comply with U.S. federal standards, such as Real ID requirements. Provinces would still handle the issuance and regulation of licenses, much like they do now, preserving local control while aligning with the broader system. The process would include a phase-in period, during which existing Canadian passports and licenses would remain valid. This would ensure a smooth transition, giving Canadians time to adjust while gaining access to the benefits of the unified system.
Asked by Michael O'Connor from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Would Canadians have to adopt the U.S. presidential system of government?
Great question, Michael. Yes, under a merger, Canadians would transition to the U.S. presidential system of government. However, this doesn't mean the complete loss of the systems and values Canadians hold dear. There could be opportunities to adapt and preserve elements of Canada's parliamentary traditions. In the U.S. system, the president serves as the head of state and government, with a clear separation of powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Canadian provinces would function similarly to U.S. states, maintaining control over many local matters such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, while gaining representation in the U.S. Congress. This transition would give Canadians a direct say in electing the president and members of Congress, allowing them to influence federal policy on a larger stage. While it would be a shift from the current parliamentary system, it could also create opportunities for Canadians to engage more directly in the democratic process. The key would be ensuring that the merger respects Canada's values and political culture while integrating into the broader U.S. system. By working together, both nations could create a governance model that leverages the strengths of both systems.
Asked by Claire Dupont from Montreal, Quebec. Would social programs like employment insurance and pensions remain intact?
Super excellent question, Claire. Social programs like employment insurance and pensions would likely undergo adjustments, but their core purpose and benefits could remain intact or even improve through integration with U.S. systems. Canada's existing social programs, such as employment insurance, EI, and the Canada Pension Plan, CPP, could be integrated with similar U.S. programs like Social Security and unemployment benefits. Canadians would gain access to a broader range of resources and services under the larger U.S. federal system. For instance, Social Security provides retirement, disability, and survivors' benefits, which could supplement or replace existing Canadian pension programs. To ensure a smooth transition, there would likely be agreements to preserve earned benefits for Canadians who have already contributed to programs like the CPP. Additionally, provinces could retain some control over local social assistance programs, allowing for regional adjustments to meet specific needs. Ultimately, a merger could enhance the sustainability and scope of social programs by leveraging the combined economic power of both nations.
Asked by Marie Tremblay from Quebec City, Quebec. How would Quebec and Indigenous communities respond to such a proposal?
Great question, Marie. For Quebec, joining the United States could actually present unique opportunities to preserve and even elevate its culture and language while gaining a stronger voice on the global stage. Quebec's rich French heritage and distinct identity could be safeguarded through special agreements during the merger. Similar to how individual U.S. states have the power to set their own laws and policies, Quebec could negotiate for significant autonomy in areas like language, education, and cultural preservation. For example, Quebec could maintain its status as a French-speaking region with constitutional protections, ensuring the continued prominence of the French language in government, schools, and public life. Joining the United States would also give Quebec access to greater economic resources, trade opportunities, and a larger platform to share its culture with a broader audience. Imagine Quebec's vibrant arts, cuisine, and traditions reaching millions more people while remaining firmly rooted in its heritage. Moreover, Quebec's representatives in Congress and the Senate could advocate for issues important to the province, amplifying Quebec's influence in shaping policies that matter both locally and globally. Rather than diluting Quebec's identity, this merger could create a framework where its distinct culture and language thrive within a larger, supportive system. By negotiating thoughtfully, Quebec could secure both its traditions and a stronger future for its people.
Asked by Thomas Bennett from Fort McMurray, Alberta. What would happen to Canada's natural resources like oil and water?
Excellent question, Thomas. Canada's natural resources are a cornerstone of its economy, and their management would be a key focus in any merger. While changes would occur, such a union could bring substantial benefits to Canadians and their industries. Under the U.S. federal system, resource management would likely involve collaboration between provincial, state-level governments and the federal government, similar to how U.S. states manage their resources. Provinces like Alberta could retain a strong role in regulating industries like oil and gas, ensuring that local interests and environmental standards are upheld. One of the most significant benefits would be the dramatic increase in the job market. With access to a larger, more integrated economy, Canadian provinces as U.S. states would see enhanced opportunities for employment across industries like energy, forestry, and water management. Infrastructure investments, such as pipelines, renewable energy projects, and export facilities, would create thousands of jobs, driving economic growth in communities across the country. Additionally, the merger would eliminate barriers like cross-border trade restrictions and exchange rate fluctuations, reducing income losses for Canadian businesses and workers. This economic integration could result in higher wages, more stable employment, and increased investment in local economies. Canada's freshwater resources, a vital asset, could also benefit from responsible management and greater investment in sustainability. Unified policies across North America could ensure these resources are protected while meeting growing demand efficiently. In summary, by ensuring agreements that prioritize Canadian interests, provinces and territories could harness the full potential of their natural resources, creating jobs, stabilizing income, and strengthening local economies while responsibly managing their environmental legacy.
Asked by Jessica Campbell from Winnipeg, Manitoba. How would our social insurance numbers work? Will they be changed? What about people with bad credit?
Great question, Jessica. According to information from an anonymous source within the government, social insurance numbers, SINs, would likely transition seamlessly into the U.S. Social Security Number, SSN, system. Here's how it will work. Existing SINs would be converted into SSNs through a streamlined process to ensure continuity. This would allow Canadians to access benefits and services under the U.S. system without any disruption. Governments would implement a straightforward plan to minimize confusion, with safeguards in place to ensure a smooth transition for all citizens. For individuals with bad credit, the merger could be particularly beneficial. Credit histories would be reset and transitioned into a U.S.-based system, providing a fresh start under new guidelines. This reset would give Canadians who have faced financial hardship a valuable second chance to rebuild their credit profiles. The expanded financial framework of the U.S. system would also offer more opportunities, resources, and support programs, helping individuals establish stronger financial foundations. This transition to a new identification and credit system would be designed not only to ensure fairness, but also to maximize benefits for Canadians, creating opportunities for a brighter financial future within a larger, more dynamic economic framework.
Asked by Mark Stevens from Calgary, Alberta. Trump said in a statement that merging Canada and Greenland into the United States is more for national security reasons. Could the drones have something to do with this? Or is it just because the United States keeps overpaying Canada?
Great questions, Mark. National security has been a central theme in President Trump's statement about merging Canada and Greenland, and there are compelling reasons behind this perspective. Drones could indeed be a key factor. With advancements in drone technology, their use in surveillance, defense, and conflict scenarios has become essential for modern security strategies. Canada and Greenland have vast northern territories that are critical for monitoring Arctic activity. The Arctic is becoming an increasingly contested space, with global powers like Russia and China seeking influence in the region. Integrating Canada and Greenland would allow the United States to secure critical Arctic airspace, deploy advanced technologies like drones more effectively, and safeguard the entire region. Furthermore, the world today is far from the peaceful landscape it once was. Despite Canada's reputation as a peaceful country, its geographical position makes it a prime target for adversaries of both Canada and the United States. The Arctic remains vulnerable, and Canada's borders with the U.S. represent potential entry points for foreign enemies. A merger would dramatically enhance the protection of all of North America, solidify Arctic security, and create a unified front against external threats. On the economic side, the claim that the U.S. is overpaying Canada in defense and trade relations holds weight. The U.S. invests heavily in NATO and NORAD to defend North America, including Canada. By merging, these responsibilities could be consolidated, streamlining costs and resources while ensuring a unified approach to defense. If the U.S. were to impose tariffs or other economic restrictions on Canada, the Canadian economy could face significant challenges, potentially leading to greater U.S. influence or control in the long term. This merger proposal addresses multiple priorities: strengthening national security, optimizing defense spending, and leveraging Canada's and Greenland's strategic and economic advantages. Whether drones are a primary driver or one piece of the puzzle, the overarching goal is clear: to enhance North American security, stability, and prosperity in an increasingly uncertain world.
Asked by Emma Roberts from Toronto, Ontario, how would day-to-day life change for the average Canadian?
Great question, Emma. Day-to-day life for the average Canadian would undoubtedly experience changes, but many of these changes could bring significant benefits while retaining much of what Canadians value about their way of life. One of the most noticeable changes would be the adoption of the U.S. dollar, which would eliminate currency exchange fees and simplify cross-border trade, shopping, and travel. Prices might become more aligned with those in the United States, potentially lowering costs for goods and services due to increased market competition and access to larger supply chains. On the governance side, Canadians would gain representation in the U.S. Congress and Senate, providing them with a voice in federal decision-making. Provincial governments, functioning similarly to U.S. state governments, would continue to handle local issues like healthcare, education, and infrastructure, ensuring that Canadian traditions and policies are preserved. Employment opportunities would expand dramatically as Canadians gain access to a much larger job market and benefit from increased investment in infrastructure, industries, and technology. Social programs such as pensions and unemployment benefits would integrate with U.S. systems, potentially enhancing resources available to Canadians. There would also be greater mobility across North America, making it easier for Canadians to work, study, and travel in the United States without the need for visas or permits. At the same time, Canada's cultural heritage and bilingualism could be protected through special agreements, ensuring that Canadians retain their identity within the larger framework. While adjustments would take time, the long-term result could be an enhanced quality of life, greater economic opportunities, and stronger security for Canadians, all while preserving the unique character that makes Canada special. Well, there you have it. We've explored the many questions and concerns surrounding the idea of Canada merging into the United States, and the benefits speak for themselves. This is more than just a merger. It's an opportunity to strengthen our security, expand our economic potential, and elevate the quality of life for every Canadian. Imagine having access to a larger job market, a stronger defense system, and one of the most powerful currencies in the world, all while preserving Canada's unique culture, heritage, and values. Now, before we wrap up, we want to address one question we've received multiple times. I'm 19, and I can drink here in Canada, but in the U.S., I'd have to wait until I'm 21. Would I lose my ability to drink or smoke? This is a fair concern, and here's the honest answer. The U.S. legal drinking age is set federally at 21, and cannabis laws vary by state, which means there would be adjustments. However, just like U.S. states have control over many local laws, Canadian provinces transitioning to U.S. states could negotiate to maintain their existing policies for alcohol and cannabis. For example, some U.S. states already have progressive cannabis laws, and provinces like British Columbia or Ontario could follow a similar path. We initially hesitated to answer this question because we understand it's a deeply personal topic for many, tied to lifestyle and cultural norms. But it's important to recognize that this merger is about much more than these individual concerns. It's about securing a brighter, more prosperous future for all Canadians, with opportunities and protections that far outweigh the potential inconveniences of adapting to new regulations. This isn't just about joining a bigger nation. It's about building a stronger North America, a unified community that protects its people, thrives economically, and stands as a global leader. Offers like this don't come often, and it's a chance to secure a future where Canadians can truly prosper. So, as we reflect on this historic possibility, let's keep an open mind about what this merger could mean. Together, Canada, the United States, and Greenland could redefine what it means to be united, resilient, and ready to face the challenges of tomorrow. Thank you for watching. But before we go, we have one final thing. The founder of Ultra Prime Selections has written a speech to all of North America. This speech is addressed to each of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we stand at the threshold of a new dawn, a moment in time where our choices will echo for generations to come. Before us lies an opportunity, a chance to not only shape the future but to redefine it, to build a North America united in purpose, driven by hope, and guided by the shared values that bind us together. The Canada-USA merger is not just an idea. It is a call to greatness, a promise of what we can achieve when we dare to dream beyond borders. Throughout history, our two nations have stood as beacons of freedom, resilience, and progress. We have faced challenges that tested our resolve, yet we emerged stronger, not because we stood apart, but because we stood together. Today, we are called to take the next step in our shared journey, to unite our strengths and build a future that transcends division, celebrates our diversity, and embraces the boundless potential of what we can achieve together. Imagine a North America where the innovations of Silicon Valley fuel the resourcefulness of Alberta, where Quebec's rich culture and history inspire the vibrancy of New York City, where our shared commitment to human rights, sustainability, and opportunity propels us to lead the world in solutions to the greatest challenges of our time. This is not just a dream, it is the future we can create. But to realize this future, we must put aside our differences. We must set aside fear, fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of stepping beyond what is familiar. It is natural to feel apprehensive when faced with something so transformative. But history has shown us that progress is born not from hesitation, but from courage. Fear divides us, but hope unites us. And it is hope that must guide us now. This merger is more than the alignment of economies and governments. It is the union of our people, of their dreams, aspirations, and hopes for a better tomorrow. It is a testament to the belief that we are stronger together, that unity does not erase differences but amplifies them, weaving them into a tapestry that is stronger and more beautiful than ever before. Think of our children. Imagine them growing up in a world where they are not confined by the boundaries of the past but are empowered by the limitless possibilities of the future. A world where they are free to dream big, work hard, and achieve greatness in communities that are safe, prosperous, and brimming with opportunity. By merging, we are not just creating a brighter future for ourselves. We are building a legacy of hope, security, and promise for those who come after us. Some will say this vision is too bold, too ambitious. But history has shown us that boldness is the foundation of progress. The pioneers who built our nations did not shy away from challenges. They embraced them. They dared to look beyond the horizon, to imagine a world that was better, stronger, and more just. Today, we are called to honor that spirit and to take up the mantle of leadership for a new era. This is our moment, to tear down barriers, unlock potential, and write the next chapter in the story of North America. A chapter defined by unity, prosperity, and hope. A chapter that will show the world that when people come together with courage, conviction, and compassion, there is nothing they cannot achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just a merger. It is a declaration of our shared destiny, a commitment to the values that make us who we are, and a promise to the generations yet to come. Together, we can build a North America that stands as a beacon of hope, a model of progress, and a testament to the power of unity. Let us move forward with courage. Let us act with conviction. Let us unite with hope. The future is ours to create. The horizon is ours to reach. Together, there is no limit to what we can achieve. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It will mean a lot for all of us here at Ultra Prime Selections Incorporated.